welcome to the ASMR review show. For this video, we are going to be talking about the best movies of the previous year, 2023. So if you're watching this, welcome to the future. Welcome to 2024. Hope everything is going as planned for your life, and get going on those New Year's resolutions. My New Year's resolution was to enjoy a good Nutty Uncle peanut butter stout from Dead Frog Brewing, because it's the end of the year, we're celebrating, beginning of a new one, and I like peanut butter and beer, and it's quite tasty indeed. So, we're going to talk about my favorite movies of the year, and overall it was an okay year for movies. There were a lot of good ones, but I just feel like I wasn't being hit with masterpiece after masterpiece. For example, last year, right? I had 5 movies I gave 5 stars to, and they were all actually kind of earlier in the year for the most part. And it just kept going from there, and I ended the year with having 20 movies I wanted to talk about. But this year, not so much. There was only a couple movies I gave out a perfect 5 stars to, and it was a lot of movies I really enjoyed, despite maybe having not as many things I was too into, if that makes sense. But, they can't all be bangers, right? It's a good year. There was a lot of good movies. I don't know, it just felt like not as strong as last year, so that's how it is. And I managed to see most of the movies I was really wanting to see. There is one big omission from this list, and that is The Zone of Interest, because that movie has not been released anywhere near where I live. Very limited release. And unfortunately, people want you to do your top 10 lists right at the end of the year. But that's difficult because, well, most of the big movies that might end up winning lots of stuff haven't come out yet. And I probably won't be seeing them until late January or February. Though, last year I felt there was a lot of movies I didn't get around to seeing, and this year I think that's the only one that comes to mind, is The Zone of Interest. I feel like everything else. There's another one that's gotten good attention. All of Us Strangers. Apparently that's a good one. And I haven't seen Iron Claw yet. But I'm on Letterboxd now, so when we go over these movies, if there is one that I don't talk about, you can go onto my profile and see if I've seen it, and I'll be posting a public list of every movie that I saw in 2023 for new movies, so you can go look on there, right? And again, it's all just my opinion, right? But if you clicked on this video expecting me to talk about the top movies of 2023, I got bad news for you. You got clickbaited. Because I want to talk about a couple of movies that were new for me this year, but were not 2023 movies. Because I've also been keeping track of movies I've seen that aren't new, but they were new to me. So we're going to quickly go over those, because I thought it would be interesting to see, what new movies were the best for me that weren't new movies. So we've got that right here. Kicking off, number 10, The Raid 2. I had not seen either of the Raid movies until this year, and they were both fantastic. I see why they have a reputation as being some of the best action movies. I preferred The Raid 2 because it was like the first one, but bigger and more epic. And that final fight in the kitchen was just so beautiful. Next, number 9, Swiss Army Man. I watched this because, of course, there had been lots of attention given towards Everything Everywhere All at Once, previous year's Best Picture winner, and it's from the same directors, Daniels. And that one was actually really good too. It really surprised me. I feel like the internet did a very poor job of selling me on that movie, because they just simply said, it's got Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe, and he farts. It's funny because it's gross. And it just felt kind of juvenile. But that's like basically the start of the movie, and they didn't talk about how it gets very metaphysical and existential, and how it's also just simply so hilarious and entertaining. Like, people just basically tried to describe it as, this is a movie that's different, therefore it's automatically the best movie ever because different is good. Well, no, you need a little more to it than that. And this movie did. It's very good. I really enjoyed it. But it's definitely not for everybody. And then we had At Eternity's Gate, which is a Vincent Van Gogh movie starring Willem Dafoe as Vincent Van Gogh, so obviously it's going to be a great movie. The style is probably not for everybody. It's the same director who did The Diving Bell and The Butterfly, which I have not seen. But no, it was really good. I really liked it. It's just very sad and melancholic. There's a stretch of the movie where it feels like for 20 minutes it's just Van Gogh walking around and painting stuff while this very great soundtrack of just piano and violin plays, and that could have gone on for as long as it wanted, and I would have loved it. Next is Gladiator. I had actually not seen Gladiator until this year, surprisingly. And it was really good. I was a little hesitant to watch this one because many people had talked about how Gladiator was one of the most overrated Best Picture winners of all time, in every aspect, and I didn't feel that way. I really loved it. Not my favorite Ridley Scott period piece, though. We'll actually get to that one later. But I enjoyed it, and the movie looked good, and it had a good soundtrack. It was very funny to hear that Hans Zimmer really did rip off himself when he made Pirates of the Caribbean. And yeah, I really liked it a lot. The only thing keeping it from masterpiece status in my mind was I wasn't the biggest fan of Russell Crowe's character, because he just kind of is a guy who has had stuff happen to him, and now he wants vengeance. And that can make for good characters. We'll get later to a character whose main thing is vengeance. But in terms of, like, Oscar-worthy performance, I'm not sure about that. But it was really good. And then we have number 6, JFK, the Oliver Stone movie about the John F. Kennedy assassination. That was very good. I was kind of dreading this movie because it's 3.5 hours and almost like a documentary. But it really got me invested, and I did not notice it was 3.5 hours. And Donald Sutherland shows up halfway through the movie to just spout exposition, and it's great. We'll be seeing more Donald Sutherland later as well. And it just got me really invested in it, and it was so well done, and they don't make them like they used to, I kind of watched this as a response to watching another big 3-hour biopic with political court drama stuff that came out this year. I'm sure you can guess which one, so that was good. Next, number 5 was The Irishman. Again, I hadn't seen this one. I'd been kind of avoiding it because, again, 3.5 hour epic movie. And I just sort of threw it on. I was going through a Scorsese binge because, well, he may or may not have had a movie come out this year that may or may not appear on my list. Yeah, I really loved it a lot. I like how it starts off like a very run-of-the-mill Martin Scorsese gangsta movie, and then slowly goes into that religious existentialism that he did so well in Silence and The Last Temptation of Christ, which are actually my 2 favorite Scorsese movies, kind of out of genre, I know. The de-aging thing wasn't the greatest. Maybe they could have just simply cast some different actors with makeup, but it didn't bother me too much. Only downside for The Irishman, don't know if I'll ever watch it again. but I will be thinking about it a lot, and that's important. Number 4 was Kingdom of Heaven. Again, another one I'd been meaning to watch for a long time because it, of course, has the historic representation of the director's cut being infinitely better than the theatrical cut, which I had not seen either. And yeah, it was a very epic movie. This one I almost have considered giving it 5 stars. I might on a rewatch, and I will rewatch this one. It's just like, there's something about the movie and its themes of like religious war over the Holy Land, and with everything that's gone down in the past couple of months, it just really got to me on an emotional level. So yeah, I really loved it a lot. It's very good. Very sad though. Number 3 was Strange Days. It's a 1990s science fiction movie taking place on New Year's Eve, coincidentally. And it's one that I'd always seen like the DVD of in like the video rental store and just never bothered watching. As directed by Catherine Bigelow, who's done like The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, and written by James Cameron. This is when I think they were married or were about to get married. And so it's a great collab between the two of them, and I just love everything about this movie. The look, the style, the soundtrack, the energy, the pessimism. Though it is funny how this is meant to be like a very pessimistic, sad, depressing view of the future, and in some ways it's actually more optimistic than the reality we had, because this is meant to be, it's a 1995 movie taking place in 1999, and their idea is that, oh, we'll have a second woman president by this time, or by 2020. Well, they can't even get one. Or then, like, this is like another thing. It's a slight spoiler, but we'll try to be vague about it. But this is a movie where, when there's evidence of corruption in the police system, they do something about it. That's a little pessimistic for these days, So I really recommend this movie a lot. It might even be a future 5-star ranking for me. Number 2 is An Elephant Sitting Still. It's a 4-hour Chinese movie, I believe it was, or is it Hong Kong or Taiwan? Can't confuse them, that's very important. But yeah, 4-hour movie about loneliness and depression and misery, and it really flows very well for a 4-hour movie. It's just, they kind of just let the scenes play out like regular conversations, or characters walk from building to building in real time, and there's not much of a soundtrack, but when it's there, it hits you pretty well. Just really gets you on an emotional level, and probably one of the loneliest movies I've ever watched. So, if you wanna have a good bad time, have a bad good time, this is the one for you. But last, number 1, my favorite movie I watched in 2023 that was not a 2023 release was the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You'd think with me being such an Alien fanboy and my love for like classic 80s horror like Predator and The Thing and The Fly, that I would have been all over this movie, but I actually had not seen it. I had seen bits from it and I knew the concept. I just had not actually sat down to watch the whole thing, and doing so was probably the best experience of my life and the worst experience of my wife's life, because this movie left her absolutely traumatized. And this is what I do every year. I pick a horror movie to watch, and I think it won't be that bad, and she leaves the room scarred for life, and I find one of my new favorite movies. So, that's the testament. So she'll probably hate that I talk about how much I love this movie, because it'll give her nightmares. But that's okay, because I love it. Yeah, it's just a classic science fiction horror movie, and I just was in love with the look and the design, and it's not overtly violent, but it's implied, but it's in a really good, creepy way. It really makes you feel like everybody else is out to get you. And it felt like it was like 2/3 of this movie they're just on the run and completely helpless. I just proclaimed at one point that this movie was an endless gauntlet, and I love it. And definitely one of the scariest endings in movie history. This one still holds up, all these years later. So that's my favorite movies that I saw this year that were new for me. Now, let's get on to the list you were actually here for. But this is what I do. I'm a good guy, Tars. I clickbait you, but I give you more content than what you asked for. So, we're going to do my top 10 of the year. But as you can see, these are the couple that just missed the top 10. Number 15, we have The Holdovers. It's a very great, Christmas-themed, very cozy drama. They didn't really try to make a cozy movie with that, but it ended up being that way. And it's got feels and drama to it, but I think I'll look forward to watching that on a cold day every year. It was very well made and very retro. Number 14 is Barbie. I really liked it a lot. I was surprised. I went in thinking it was going to be not that good, or that people would claim it was better than it actually is, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was pretty fun. And there were a lot of people that it pissed off, and I feel like it annoyed the right kind of people that needed to be annoyed by it, so that's pros too. And Ryan Gosling, we're not worthy. 13 is Beau is Afraid. I really love thinking and talking about this movie, just not actually watching it, because at 3 hours it is way too long of a film to justify that length. But I will take a movie with really cool ideas, visuals, and production design, even if it's not perfect. So, yeah, I'm going to stick that one there. It's inventive and it's cool. I just think that Ari Aster maybe needed to be controlled a little on this one. Number 12 is The Boy and the Heron. It's the new Hayao Miyazaki movie, and I'll probably bump this one up later. I just feel like after the first watch I thought it was really good, but it needed a little more. But I feel like out of all the Miyazaki movies, this one is going to benefit from a rewatch the most. So that could change position and go a little higher. And then number 11 is Past Lives, which is probably number 1 on most people's lists. And this would be in my top 10 if not for the existence of all of these other films. Right? Like, it would be higher if there weren't more. These ones are all good movies. They're just not in the top 10 because there's movies that edged them out. But that's how it is. You can't put 15 movies in your top 10. So yeah, Past Lives, very good drama. Well done, well shot. Can't believe that was a directorial debut from that person. That's insane. But yeah, it's I like how there's no clear villain in that as well, because there was so much potential to be able to do that and descend into melodrama, and they didn't do that. So that was very good on their part. I liked that a lot. Yeah, a very good cry, but like in a good way. Yeah. So those are the honorable mentions. Again, if you don't see the movie you're looking for, check out this list and let me know, right? I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. So, number 10 is Saltburn, which I think is kind of a controversial pick because I went in watching this movie knowing literally nothing about it other than the fact that it was a movie and people were interested in it. And I was really into it a lot. It's not a perfect movie, and I feel like some people are trying to read in to more of a message than what the film actually has. Like, I don't know if it was intended to be some kind of a class commentary or political discourse. I think that they just sent set out to make a ride. And what a magnificent ride it was. I just enjoyed the thrill, and the movie looks great, and it's got so many great classic bangers on the soundtrack. And I had fun with it, and I enjoyed it, right? Like, I watched a movie, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, it's going to get lots of points from me in that regard. But again, this one's not going to be for everybody, so it'll be interesting to see if it gets a lot of award nominations and then more people go and watch it and get a little surprised by what it is. We shall see. Number 9 is Nimona. This was actually quite a surprise one for me because it was a direct Netflix animated movie that was originally going to be like a Blue Sky Studios production, like 20th Century Fox, and then Disney acquired the project and then shut it down. But then Netflix helped revive it. So yeah, a rare Netflix win. All right. This to me was like a great animated movie. It manages to be like a good kid movie, but still like with good adult themes. It has the frantic energy and pacing of a certain other animated movie that we may or may not see later on the list. And it was also very emotional. There is a childhood favorite animated movie of mine that this started giving me very good vibes to, which I won't say because I kind of consider it a spoiler. And yeah, it's just like so fun and relentless and so much more than it needed to be. Like, this movie did not need to go that hard, but they did. Proof that a kids animated movie can be so much more than just that. So I love that one a lot. Number 8 is Anatomy of a Fall. It's a drama, and I guess it counts as a foreign film. I mean, there's like French speaking in it, but like, I don't know if the studio, I think Elevation Pictures helps distribute it. Not sure where that counts on it. Yeah. But so, that one was very good. Just insane how intense courtroom political, drama can be. A trial about a potential murder / Sudoku incident. Was very surprised at how invested I got in that story. And it's interesting to see how, like, so many different coincidences and potential things can add up to making you a murder suspect. Yeah, it was really good. I just really dug it. I was invested. It's hard for me to describe it more than that. And it was very well shot. So yeah, that's a very good one. Number 7 is Godzilla -1. Probably the biggest surprise for me and most people's lists was this one. Basically, word of mouth got my attention that apparently the new Godzilla movie's real good, right? And that out of the 2 movies we got about the atomic bomb, that this was actually the better one. Well, not for me particularly, but we'll see. They're all pretty close. Keep in mind, don't get too technical about, 7 being higher than 8, and therefore 7 is a better movie than 8, and therefore 7 is good and 8 isn't. It's just like they're all on the list. That's really what matters. I don't think the order needs to be too particular, right? I may even change my mind when I'm in the editing process for this film. It's just basically like, look at that these films are on the list. Don't get too particular about the ranking. But Godzilla -1, it was such a great movie because they essentially did what Top Gun Maverick did, which was take a really good film, Top Gun or the original Godzilla, remake it for modern times, make it more emotional and in-depth, and just really go back to the roots. That's what Godzilla -1 did. They really went back to the idea of Godzilla being a horrifying monster born out of atomic war. And that it's kind of a horror movie in a way. Much was made of the whole visual effects looking so good and better than Marvel with such a smaller budget, and yes, that is a part of it, that they did that much with so little. But really, it's about the emotional core that we got a kaiju monster movie with good characters and a good story, thus proving you can actually do both. And even as someone who likes the new American Godzillas, this one definitely put them all to shame, to show that you can actually do both. You just gotta real work at it, that's for sure. And I gotta hear the Godzilla theme. Oh, I'm so glad people are coming around how epic of a theme that is. Number 6 is The Creator. Probably another one that's not gonna be on most people's top lists. And no, I watched this movie the first time and thought it was good, and the second time I liked it even more. Because it has such a great visual style and look to it. I love the way this movie is shot, and the visual effects are so good. I love the world. This just makes me want to scream at the camera, get Gareth Edwards to direct a Mass Effect show. Okay, he would do so good at doing something, because I see like these shots of like, what is it, like Seoul, South Korea, places like that, Southeast Asia, and he makes these places somehow look like they're not on Earth, even though he's filming on Earth. You know, and that's what you need to do for Mass Effect. Find a place on Earth that doesn't look like Earth. Like, he made this look like it was Vermeer from Mass Effect 1. And the way they have all these very robotic creatures and the people with implants, and they blend seamlessly in with people with no other effects on them. Like, okay, he could do the Geth perfect justice, right? So I love the look to this film. I always like when we get a good, straight up, no-nonsense science fiction film. It's kind of an easy win for me in that regard, so I am biased in that way. And this movie is not perfect. I feel like 20 minutes were cut out of the ending. The ending doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's okay. I'll take a movie that tries to strive for something original and conceptual and doesn't do it well than a movie that plays it safe. Yeah. And I know that you could say, oh, this movie, it's like Blade Runner, or it's like this, it's like that. Yes, it is. But the point is, they didn't just feel the need to forcibly slap on a title that it was an existing IP, right? That's what's good about it. They could have done that, but they didn't. And they spent most of their time in Southeast Asia with real cool locations and visuals. You know, it's just like, I got so much from this movie, and I wanted more. Now maybe we'll see if we get the real version when we get the director's cut. Number 5 is Oppenheimer. Yes, it's only number 5 on my list. I did really like this movie a lot, and it's a very good one. But it is not my favorite movie of the year, nor is it my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. Okay, it's B tier for Nolan, but an overall A tier movie, if that makes sense. I feel like people got a little too hyped up in the whole 70mm IMAX, 0 CG, all practical effects, and that automatically makes it the best movie ever. Ignoring the fact that the last hour of this movie kind of drags. Like, I feel like he just was really pushing to hit that 3-hour mark, and the movie being edited like it's a movie trailer with the interlocking timelines. I feel like this movie gets a little obnoxious. Like, I know he's meant to be confusing, but like, you could at least give me a couple of like title cards with some years on them, so I know what years these events are taking place in. That would just help a little bit. So I feel like it was Nolan getting a little caught up in himself, but instead of making a confusing action movie like Tenet, he made a confusing biopic with Oppenheimer. And the 70mm IMAX, it's mostly just see close-ups of Cillian Murphy's face looking all sad, and boring boardrooms and meetings. It was very impressive that he snuck a 3-hour political court drama into theaters disguised as a summer blockbuster, and then everybody went to see it because it opened the same day as Barbie. That's pretty cool. But yeah, that's how it is. I know it sounds like I'm talking smack about Oppenheimer. It's just that, like, I want to ground my view of it, you know? Yeah, I really love it. It's probably the best soundtrack of the year. Ludwig Göransson, my man. It's very good looking, and it's well acted, and it's well directed. But I do have to take a step back and realize this is not a movie that I'm going to rewatch as much as Interstellar, Dunkirk, The Prestige, the Dark Knight movies, any of that. And at 3 hours long, it is very difficult to digest in one sitting. It is quite a lot. And I feel like if we'd rated it a little bit, it could have been better. And I don't know if all the Nolanisms were necessary. But despite the last hour dragging a little bit, that ending was such a good ending, so it does make up for it. So yeah, I do really like this movie a lot, but it's not my favorite of the year, if that makes sense. Number 4 is the other big 3-hour epic from a classic director, and that is Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese. Marty stepped in to just give us a true awesome movie. I've seen it twice now. I'll probably rewatch this. Didn't think this is one I would want to rewatch a lot. But yeah, so well made, well directed, so perfectly paced for a 3.5-hour movie. I don't ever get bored. Like, when watching this movie, I feel like, yes, this is a long movie. It's not as short as Lord of the Rings. It's not as long as Oppenheimer. But it just flows very well. You know, it's always in motion, but never feels rushed. And it's such an important story to be told, and it's done in such a great way from Marty. Just great directing. Thelma, his editor, she does a great job. Great performances all around. Love the way the story was framed and all that, you know. Yeah, just such a great job. And then, just when you think it's over, that ending, the ending to this movie is, no exaggeration, maybe like the single greatest sequence of film that Marty has ever done. It's such a genius sequence that really contextualizes the whole film. Really makes you think about what you've just seen. Kind of calls out the audience and Hollywood at the same time, but also acknowledges Martin Scorsese's own limitations as a filmmaker when it comes to this project. It's like so amazing, and I could not stop thinking about it. It's probably the ending that's going to stick with me the most out of all these films, more so than Oppenheimer. Yeah, I said it. For context, you've been seeing that most of these movies at the top are 4.5. I would almost give Killers of the Flower Moon a 5-star rating. Now we get to the 5 stars, and here's how it goes. There were 2 movies I saw earlier in the year that were instant 5 stars for me because I watched them and I had a great time and I loved everything about them, and as soon as they were available to watch on streaming, I watched them, and I watched them multiple times, either in theaters or on streaming, and I've never stopped thinking just about how great those movies are. And the third one was a recent one that surprised me that I didn't even know about. So that's how it is. But honestly, just the movie that I kept coming back to was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, right? Yeah, I know. Animated movie, superhero movie. But it's just, I love the energy, the style, the soundtrack. It's all such a great experience. Yeah, it's only half the story, but that's okay. It still felt like a good story wrapped up together. And I really hope that they stick the landing with this next one, whenever that comes out. It's great. And again, you know, it's hard to compare. How do I compare this to that? How do I compare these all, right? Well, again, the fact that they're all on the list, that is more telling than their numerical position, right? But it was just simple, like, I'm gonna watch Spider-Man more. And versus 12. Just accept that they're all on the list in some kind of an order. Yeah, this one was great. Bold indeed. And then number 2, the other one that was just always on my radar was John Wick Chapter 4, which is funny because I had not really been into the John Wick movies, and then I saw Chapter 4 was coming out. So I binged through all of them and found myself getting really into this franchise. And then I went and I saw the 4th one in theaters, and I thought, like, that's like one of the best action movies I've ever seen. 3 hours long, not a dull moment, so well shot, so entertaining. And it was also really pertinent for me because I was about to go on my honeymoon to Paris, so that instantly seeing this whole big sequence made me go, okay, I want to go to every scene where this movie was shot. And so we did. I went to Moulin Rouge, Trocador, and Montmartre, Sacré-Cœur. I went to all those locations, and I climbed up the steps. I went up the steps from this movie. So definitely there's a bit of bias in there. And of course, you know, Keanu Reeves, I totally have the hots for him in the John Wick movies. He's very spexy indeed. But yeah, like, I don't know, what can I say, right? Like, last year my favorite movie was Top Gun Maverick. Was that the best movie of the year? I don't know, but it's the one I enjoyed the most. And that for me is why John Wick Chapter 4 and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse are 2 of my top movies of the year. But wait, there's more. What is number 1, you ask? Well, I like my simple, entertaining movies, and I like my artsy movies, but I like movies with a lot of imagination to them, and a very distinctive visual style, and I like surreal movies, and movies that can also be simultaneously kind of funny. And even though I just saw this movie, and I don't even know if I got everything out of it, I do really want to rewatch it, so I'm just gonna proclaim it now, my number 1 favorite movie of 2023 that is not The Zone of Interest, because I can't see that yet. It's Poor Things. Yeah, I just saw this one, and I love it so much. This is the kind of energy I was hoping for more films this year. Right, like a movie where I just see it and it's just, oh my gosh, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. I didn't really get that many times this year, right? I got lots of movies where I'm like, yeah, that was really good, right? But not like blown away like I was with Poor Things. Just the style, set design, visuals, the very unnerving, creepy soundtrack, and the absurdist comedy to it. Yeah, it was such an experience, one that I could not wait to relive. Yeah, that's how it is, that's how you get me, so I don't know if that's gonna be a big Oscar contender. It'll be interesting to see, because there's a lot of, shall we say, frantic jumping in the movie. Yeah, and that's not gonna be everybody's thing. But I really loved it. You know, I like movies with a good world and a good imagination and a good style. Movies where I just want to, like, see as much as possible from the world. And I guess that's something I can say about most of my top films here, right? They've all got some kind of creation to them. Something that gives me that spark, that imagination, you know? Whether it's the killer soundtrack of Oppenheimer, you know, can you hear the music? That is like the whole brain going, ooh, incarnate. Killers of the Flower Moon, you know, desolate landscape of filth and violence and greed and corruption. Spider-Man, just this wonder and awe and deconstruction of the superhero myth. John Wick Chapter 4, neon, badassery, violence, and then Poor Things, surreal, absurdism, strangeness, love, hate, fear. It's all there. So yeah, that's my top movies of 2023. Again, haven't seen every movie that came out this year. The Zone of Interest is the biggest one I wanted to see and couldn't get to see yet. I will probably do another top movies when we get to the Oscar nominations, right? That's what I usually do. And now that I've kind of got this whole tier list thing figuring out, I might do a tier list of the Best Picture nominees when we get there. So, yeah, that's the list. Again, if you want to see everything else, go check me out on Letterboxd, give me a follow, and yeah, hope you all enjoyed that. Let me know what your favorite film of 2023 was, and it was going to be Dune Part 2 if it got released this year, but it didn't. So, better luck next year. Hope you all enjoyed that, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good night.